Hello guys, it's Stefano here for a new fantastic tutorial on video making, editing, animations and so on. This time we are going to switch software. Instead of using Adobe After Effects, we are going to use Adobe Premiere. So just an observation of these two different software. Premiere, well, let's start from After Effects is mainly for motion graphics, for creating compositions, animations using shapes that we create or uh, vector files that we can import from Illustrator, as we have seen, and so on. Whereas Adobe Premiere is a software for editing. That means that we can quite easily, as you are going to see, compose uh, footage together, clips that we have made, uh, compositions that we have created in After Effects in order to create a video that has some effects like a title in the beginning, some transitions between footage, or we can add soundtrack, so some audio files in the background, and so on. So as we are going to see in a while, the interface itself is much easier for creating editing videos than in After Effects, which is more for motion graphics and animations. But let's jump into the software. If we fire up the software, Adobe Premiere, and in this case I'm using CX 5.5. So this could be the first window that you should see. So we can first set a couple of options. So we have video, display formats, time code should be the standard. Let's keep it as it is. Audio for the samples, and then capture formats. We can select either DV or HDV. Let's go for HDV. And then we can select the folder in which we want to save our file. We select the folder, and then we can uh, define a name for our project. Let's call it test. Okay. Now here we have another window in which we can define the settings for the new sequence. So the sequence is the name of what in After Effects is called composition. In Premiere it's called sequence. So sequence is simply a combination of clips, footage, and then some sort of effects, and as I said before, the audio soundtrack for creating our video. It's called a sequence. So we can create the new sequence. We can give it the sequence a name, but most importantly, we can set some properties here. So these are some standards of videos. We can select HDV as we have been using so far, 720 pixel and 30 frames per second, like we did in the After Effects um, tutorials. Let's click OK and create the new sequence. So here is the interface. It looks somehow similar to After Effects with some differences. To the left, we have the project window as we do in the After Effects software, and here uh, we can see the sequences we are working on. Here we're working with sequence number 1. We can import footage, clips, audio files, and so on. Here at the bottom we have a media browser tab in which we can select our folders, some info about the sequence or the clips that we have. Now we have created a sequence which is 30 frames per second, 1280 by 720, and here we can review these properties. Here we have a series of effects and presets we can add to our clips, and then a history of what we have done. Then we have the timeline, like in After Effects, the different frames. We're going to see in a second how we can use the timeline. This window in the middle, it's where I can see, I can select, I can manipulate the effects. So it's called effect controls. Here I can specify, define the different effects I want to add to my video. And to the right, I have the preview window, like in After Effects. And to the far right, some tools. We're going to use some of these tools in a second. So let's simulate the creation of a video by composing together a couple of footage, a couple of clips that we took. In this case, these are the clips that I have. Let's see. So some videos from some robotic fabrication projects. This is the first one, and then we have a second video here with a different points of view. So let's say we want to combine these two clips together. We want to add a title, and we want to add an audio soundtrack to this video. So first thing would be to import these two clips in our project window. So we can simply select the video and drag it into the project window. This is the first one. Then we can do the same for robot number 2. And we can also import a soundtrack here. So now we have all the elements that we need in order to create our first video. So let's start by adding the first video, clip into our timeline window. So we can simply drag the robot number 1 movie into our timeline. We can zoom in here by simply sliding the slider here. So now we see two things. The first one, it's our video at this video layer, and then we have at the same time the audio which is related to this video. So we can, if we play the video, we have our video running, and then the audio of the robot working. So if we don't want any audio related to the clip we have imported, we can right click in the this audio or video layer, and then simply unlink the two. So we click unlink. So now we have two different layers. If we go back now, we click either of the two, we always click both. So right click and unlink. So now we have separated the two parts. So let's leave it for now, the audio, and then let's see how we can also import the second video. We can again simply drag robot to clip and move it right next to the first one. So here an option very handy is the snap. So now I'm getting closer to the first clip, and automatically the software snaps it, the video for me. So I have this nice continuous uh, animation between the two. So alright, so I have first video, second video. I want to link them together. I want to create some transitions between the two, but I also want to add, as we said, an audio soundtrack to this animation. So I can select the video soundtrack here and drag it to the second audio track here. So now I have both the original uh, audio track on my video that I have imported, and then I have the new soundtrack that I've just dragged. And this is nice, so you can add multiple audio tracks, you can play around with them, you can have let's say a background soundtrack running, but then you also have a voice overlay, let's say a speaker or a narrator that talks over the video, so you can adjust the volume of the audio tracks in order to have some nice effect. So let's see how we can do that, how we can adjust the volume level of the audio soundtrack. So let's select the audio. Here, when I select the audio layer, the top in the effect controls, I see that I have a volume function here, and here I can define the level of my soundtrack. Let's run now the audio. So as you can see, the audio level is very high, so I can adjust here that decibel. Go back, play again. I can lower again. So if you listen carefully, when we did that, we have created something similar to what we have done in the previous tutorials in After Effects. And specifically, we have created keyframes in our animation. And so let's go back and see again what we have done. So now we have the video at the beginning. We play our video. And now let's make it even more here. And here our volume goes down. So we have created keyframes. So keyframes in Premiere work exactly like After Effects. So we can play around with them. So let's first get rid of keyframes, and let's say that we want to lower the level of our audio um, for our entire video. So in that case, we need to uncheck the stopwatch. Stopwatch is exactly the same as After Effects, and now we can simply lower our audio level, and now we can play by clicking spacebar, and we have our audio. make it even lower. And here is our audio level. But let's say we do want to play with keyframes in order to have a nice audio soundtrack that starts low at the beginning and then increases the volume over time. So we can do that by going back the very beginning of our video. We can lower the level of the audio. We can click on the stopwatch. Then we can drag our timeline here. Here we can increase the volume a bit. We have created the keyframe. We can move again. Let's say this level we want to increase the volume again. So let's go back and play. So we need to add some delay because the audio doesn't start right away. So we can simply zoom out here in our timeline, which is basically let's zoom in of the timeline here, and we can simply drag these couple of keyframes. We can go back and run. So now we have our nice intro of the audio that starts very low, then goes up to a certain level of decibel, and then stays for our entire video. And we can do the same for the very end of the video. Now let's say this is our final video. We can move it to the very end of the audio, and then set up some keyframes and go to make the audio going back to the 0 level. So let's play a bit with clips now. See how we can trim them off. Oh, just very quick observation about audio. So now we have both the soundtrack and the original audio tracks of our clips. So what's nice is that as we said, we can combine these two, so we can play with the volume of the original soundtrack, so we can have some overlays, some overlaps of the two. But let's say for now we only want our main soundtrack, so we can delete by simply clicking. Here we have to link, clicking the audio track and press delete, and we can move our intro soundtrack to the main audio level. So now we want to play with clips. We can always go back and forth with our timeline, but as you can listen to while we are moving in the timeline, at the same time we are also playing the audio soundtrack. If we only want to play with the clips, that's very annoying sometimes. So what we can do is to uncheck these to go track outputs icon. So now if we play our video or if we move the timeline, we don't listen to the soundtrack anymore. So let's see what we can do with clips. We can move them in the timeline, so we can select both or just one and move them on the timeline. So let's see, we want to leave some room here for a title. So we can either move or set our timeline here. After a second or so. So if we have our snap option that helps us to perfectly touch the timeline or perfectly combine and align clips together. We can also trim them off by using a tool that you can find here to the right. If you don't see some of the steps as we exactly like in After Effects, you can click on the window tab on the top and we can check what we are missing. So now we have tools, we have the project window option and so on. So make sure that you have this toolbar here, and what we are looking at is the eraser tool or C in your keyboard. So I click on the eraser tool and now I can split clips into different parts. Let's say I want to get rid of the very beginning of this video. I click here. Now I have to clip clips. I click D, so I'm not using the razor tool anymore. I click C and I go back to razor, click D. Now I can select my first piece of clips and click delete and get rid of it. Alternatively, I can go back. I can also, let's say this is where I want to trim my clip. I can go to the very end of my clip and I should see this icon here. That means that here I'm not moving my clip, but instead I'm trimming the clip from the very beginning to this point here. And the snap helps me to perfectly be aligned with my timeline like that. And the same for any of the clips I have. Here I can trim the beginning, I can trim also the end, I can trim the beginning, I can trim the end of this part here and so on. Then I can drag my clip and attach to the first one. So I can then put some, if I want to split two a clip in two part, as we said, I can move my timeline and then press C on my keyboard, like cut. And here I can cut my clip, or as we said, I can select the razor tool here. Very good. So let's see how we can create a transition between two clips. Because right now, if we move closer to the beginning of the next clip, I can click the spacebar. I see the first video, and then boom, I jump into the next one. But when I have two clips like this one, sometimes it's kind of nice to add a transition between the two clips, so somehow I smooth down the transition between two clips by adding some sort of effects. So if I go here to the left, clicking on the effects tab, I have some presets, and what I'm looking for is a transition between videos. So I will open up this folder, video transitions, and then I have a bunch of options You can look them up. There's some 3D motion. Um, these are what we will be playing with. Some uh, special effect you can add. You can also add some zooming options. But for now, we are looking at the dissolve up effect. So particularly cross dissolve, I can select this effect and simply drag it in my timeline. So when I'm dragging it, I see here that when I'm closer to two clips, I see the icon that turns the color from nothing to some this kind of reddish color. So this is where I want my transition to be, and then I'm holding left click and I simply release my the mouse click. Now I've added across this sort of effect into um, my two clips. So just an observation before we get into the details of this effect. See to the top of my timeline. Now since I've added this effect, I have changed my composition, my sequence instead. And I need to, in order to see the proper preview, I need to render it up again. So I can see that because there is a red line here that needs to be rendered. So I can press, sorry, go back. I can press enter in my keyboard. So I'm loading all the frames, and now I can see uh, the proper preview. So we are starting to see how the transition works. I have the clip, and then I have the second one. So it's a bit faster. It's too fast, sorry. So let's make it a little bit smoother. So a little bit longer. We can click here in the cross dissolve. So now we are in the effect controls tab, and we can play with the dissolve effect. So here I can see the length of my transition. I have the duration that here I can extend. So instead of 1 second, let's make it longer, like a couple of seconds. Um, you have some options for alignment. Um, you can select where you want first clip or second clip to start. Right now it's perfectly center, perfectly smooth. Let's click enter to reload. Let's move our timeline closer to the clips. Press spacebar, and now we see our transition. Preview. That's one of the effects we can add. We can also do it manually. We can extend the duration, click enter, and then see the preview. You can see now we made the fading of the two and the blending of the two clips longer. So we can add a bunch of effects. Now you can play around deep to black if you want to have black transition, white if you want a whiter, and so on. There's plenty of effects you can play with. You simply select what you want and drag it into the composition, into the sequence, like we did with this cross dissolve effect. Now let's say we want to add a title of our in our video. So now we're starting basically with a black sequence. We want to add a title to our video. So we have some options here in the tab. Click sequence market. What we're looking for is to create a new title. So under title tab, new title. Let's go for the default still for now. Now it's asking for the video settings. I do want to keep the settings as they are. This is exactly the width and height of my video. I can give a name for my title 1, okay. Now I'm in the, let's make it bigger. There we go. Very good. So this is at the tab where I can design basically my title. So here to the left I have a series of tools. Let's start with the type tool. Click on type tool. I can click my here preview my project. I can select the title. I can change here to the rights of properties like the fonts. I don't want this font, but I want Codebell font. Enter. I want to make font size bigger, so I can slide. I can use the slider here and make my font bigger. I can change the color of my title. I can move, if I select the tool, I can move title in my scene as I want. I can also change the background color. I can add some shadows, effects. I can also play with these fancy effects, which I wouldn't recommend, but you're free to play with them. Let's go back. Let's keep it white. So we can also we have some tools to help us center the title. Yes, we can move it around if we want to, but if we do want to align our title in our composition, we have some tools here. If we have different objects, or if we have two titles, let's make it smaller. We can select both, and then we want to align them to the left. We can use these tools. We can also align them at the center, and then make them perfectly in the middle. So we are happy with our title. We can close here this window, and we can see in the project area to the left that we have our title. So now we can simply drag the title in our sequence timeline. So let's see, we can reload. We have to reload the frames, press enter. So we have our title. Now what you're seeing is that at the beginning we have only the title. Then when we have our first clip starting, we have our background disappearing, we have our clip that starts, and we do have our title still on, right? So we can play with that. We can select our title, we can make it shorter. So right now, if we play the animation, we have title, then boom. We don't have our title anymore. But if we do want that, we can simply extend title, and now we have our title. So let's add some effects to our title. So for example, we don't want to see the title right at the beginning of the title, but first we want to see just a black screen, and then we want our title to slowly to start appearing in our animation kind of slowly with the playing by playing with the opacity. So here we have our title selected. We are in the Effect Controls tab. We can open up the opacity option here. We can uncheck the stopwatch, and now at the beginning we don't want to see the title at all, so we can change our opacity to 0. We do want here our first keyframe, then we can move our timeline. Let's say at this point I want my title to be 100%. So here I change the opacity to 100%. I can click enter, see the preview. Now let's see it again. It's too fast, so we can simply select the keyframe and move the keyframe in the timeline. Let's see it again. Here we have also some options for the keyframes, let's say temporal effects. So we can, like we used to do in After Effects, we can select uh, either one or both of the keyframes. We can select it, right click, and we have this option like easy in and easy out. Let's see the difference. Please press enter. So it's a bit slower. We can also let's extend a little bit the title. We can also make the title disappear slowly at this point instead of disappearing like that. So we can press shift, hold shift in order to exactly move our timeline marker at the end of the title. So I'm holding the timeline, I press shift, and now I'm snapping to the end of the title. So at this point, I want my opacity to go back to 0. Press enter, reload the frames. Now I see my title that appears. Then I have my clip and my project. And disappear. Very good. I can also play a bit with how my clip appears in my scene instead of going from nothing to all. I can also do the same. I can snap with the very beginning uh, in my first clip, and here I can play again with the opacity. Open up the opacity window. At the beginning I want 0, and then I can move the timeline. At this point I want the 100% opacity. press enter. I have my title appearing, and then gradually, while the title is appearing, the first clip is appearing. That's kind of cool. I have title fading and then the first clip appearing. Some nice feature in Premiere is this one. Now I have my first clip selected. I'm playing with the opacity property, and I can see here inside my clip the opacity keyframes. So now I see the first keyframe opacity 0, second keyframe the opacity is 100%. So I see the actual transition with this yellow line, and then with the yellow line remains horizontal, meaning I have 100% of opacity on my clip. So let's move to the second clip, and the very end. So I'm holding shift, and the very end here. Now I want the opacity to be 0. So let's say at this point, a couple of seconds before the end, I'm setting the opacity 100%, and then the very end I want my opacity to be 0. I press enter. I'm loading the frames. I have my title. Well, let's also play the music, which is kind of cool. And so on. So I can add more clips. I can also make the soundtrack shorter. So let's say I want my soundtrack to finish right with the my clips. So I can zoom out. I can trim my soundtrack a little bit. I can zoom in again. I can trim a little bit at the beginning because it starts second after. Drag it and trim it off at the very end of um, my sequence. I can then also trim a little bit at the beginning again, something like that. Move it, play it. Video. I want to make it the very end. And now, okay. I can play. Again. Something happened here. Okay, I think we missed that. Alright, we can also play with the keyframes as I'm doing here in a very handy way. Now I'm in the volume. Here, as you can see, I'm adjusting the volume. So I want a keyframe here. I want to move this keyframe a little bit here. -10. This is -16. So now it should be equally spaced. Let's play again. Okay, now we want to end to fade our audio while we are ending our video. So we can snap to the very end of our video, and here we can add a keyframe. So I can change, the volume effect of the audio. I can lower down the level. Alright. You can also play with some audio effects. Here under effects, you have audio effects. You can have a look at that and see what they do, and so on. So I would say that's basically it for our first tutorial on Premiere. Before finishing, let's just see how we can actually create the video. So we have our sequence here. We want to create the actual MP4 or whatever video. So we can click on File, Export Media. Here we have some export settings. We can either change the format of our outputs or say match the sequence settings that I have that I defined at the beginning. So let's say we want to create an H264 video using our preset 720, 30 frames. We can select if you want to export the audio as well. But then we also have a bunch of other options. Here in the video, we can change some bitrate. We have the advanced settings in the audio as well. Let's say for now we are happy with that, and we can export our file. It's rendering. And we have our video. Let's go to the folder. Let's open it up. And this is our video. So thank you guys for listening to this first tutorial in Premiere. We're going to have one more tutorial with more advanced options for Premiere, and we are going to have a bunch of more tutorials in After Effects, and let's see you next time. Bye bye.